Hi kids, I'm missing you, and just wanted to give you some examples from Unit 8 to help you get some review done this week. We're working towards a quiz that it will be on Thursday. It is a 10-question quiz that's going to be 10 points each question. However, you knew how I give partial credit, so don't get all freaked out if you get some wrong. You know, I'll be creatively grading. But this is we're working towards a quiz on Unit 8, which was all things that I taught you back before we had this crazy break. So I figured that you may not remember some of the conversions and some of the things that we did. So we're going to take a couple days of review time. I'm going to do a video for Monday giving you half of the problem examples, and then give you another video on Tuesday with the second half of examples, and then you'll have a worksheet that you're working on to help you review. You might have the worksheet already that I gave you before we left, but if not, I'll post it on our classroom page, and you can either print it out from there or do your work on loose leaf paper. And then you can take a picture and email me your results. So for today, we're going to look at converting from degrees to radians. And we learned that if you're going from degrees to radians, you need to multiply by pi over 180. And so that's the rule for the first set of problems. You're going to take like 135 degrees. And this is the one where you reduce. I know we put that in the margin of your notes. This was from section 8.1. If you look at 135 degrees and you want to change that to radians, you multiply by pi over 180, and then you think of any number you can think of that goes into 135 and goes into 180. And the first thing that comes to my mind is 5. So if I take 5 and I put 135 divided by 5, I get 27. So 27, and if I put 5 into 180, 180 divided by 5, I get 36. But then I'm going to look at that and see if is there anything else that goes into 27 and 36, and you might see that 9 goes into both of those. So I'm going to divide 9. That gives me 3 here and 4 here, and that gives me my final answer because nothing reduces with 3 and 4. So I end up with an answer of 3 pi over 4. If I do the same thing with 270, negative 270, the negative is just telling me direction, so that's just going to be attached to my answer in the end. I multiply by pi over 180. So I think of a number that goes into negative 270 and positive 180, and I think 10. So this one would be negative 27. This one would be positive 18. If I look at those, 9 actually goes into both of those. 9 goes into 27 3 times. And into 18 2 times, and so I end up with a negative 3 pi over 2. And again, the negative just tells me the direction of that angle. If I'm trying to go from radians to degrees, actually these directions here, leave your answer in terms of pi, should be up here with this guy. Sorry about that. If I go from radians to degrees, it's even easier because all I need to do, radians to degrees, is multiply by 180 over pi, and this time I can use a calculator because the pi's are going to cancel. So if that's the case, I multiply by 180 over pi. The pi's cancel out, and so I can go to my calculator and say, okay, calculator, what is 4 times 180 divided by 5? And it tells me the answer. Let me show you. Hard to see the whole thing, right? 144 is my final answer. And so that's your answer for this one. This one is 144 degrees. If I go to negative pi over 9 and do the same thing, multiply by 180 over pi, again, my pi's cancel out. And if I go to my calculator and I think about what is 180 divided by 9, I get 20, but it's got a negative with it for direction. So negative 20 degrees is my answer for that one. So converting between degrees and radians to degrees are going to be the first questions on your review sheet and the first questions that are on the quiz. Then we get to these that are the coterminal angles, and they gave some of you a hard time. So we're going to practice a few of these. I want to find a positive and a negative coterminal angle for each one that's given. And so my first job is to graph the original angle. If I'm 280 degrees, I start in the standard position. Here's 90, here's 180, here's 270. I need to go a little bit more. Here's 280. That's this one. So draw the original angle first. And then what you're going to do is you're going to figure out a positive angle and a negative angle that would have the same starting and stopping place. If I start here and stop here, that would be 280, and how much more does it take to get to a full circle? So if I take 280 from 360 minus 280, I get 80 degrees. So this guy is 80 degrees, but notice that I went in a negative direction to get there. So he's a negative 80. And if I were to take and go in a positive direction for this, go positive, start here, stop here, I wish. That's the same as the original for 280, so I need to go a full circle behind that. So I'm going to go 280 plus another 360, and that's going to be how much I've got. So this is 640. And so remember the trick I told you, and that was in a positive direction. This 80 and that 640 have to add up to be some multiple of 360, and if I add them together, I get 720, and that is 2 full circles. So I know that I'm right on that. All right, let's try another one. Negative 420. Here's negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, negative 360, but I need to go even more. I need to go to 420. So that means I need to go 360 plus 60 more to be able to get to 420. So that would be over here about 60 more. So here's my negative 420. All right, so how far is it from 360 to 420? And if I subtract them, I get 60 degrees in a negative direction. If I go in a positive direction, how far is it to start here, go all the way around in a positive direction and stop here? Well, if I have a 60 degree bite out of my circle, that means that my green guy has to be 300 degrees. 300 degrees, and that was in a positive direction. And you can see if I add these together, forgetting about the negative, that's just telling me direction, I get 360, so I know that those are a right combination. If I get into these ones with pies, some of you, when we were together, some of you converted these into degrees first using your conversion from right here. You can do that and just do these all in degrees, that's fine. Or you can just do them in the pies. Some of you like the pies. So I'm going to keep it in pies, but again, you could change it into degrees if you wanted to. So if I'm graphing 6 pi over 5, that's 1 1/5 pi. So I start here. Here's 1 pi. I need to go 1/5 more. So I'm going to go just a teeny bit more. This is 1 1/5 pi. 1 1/5 pi. All right, so my positive and negatives. If I start here in the negative direction and stop there, I can't, it's not a full pi. I can't get to pi because pi would be the straight line across. But I know that this chunk right in here is 1/5. Remember this was 1 1/5? So that means that my orange guy must be 4/5. 4 pi over 5 in a negative direction. Because 4/5 and 1/5 make one whole, which would take me right to the line there where pi is. So that's my negative 4/5. If I go in a positive direction, start here, 1 1/5, but I can't stop there. I have to go around 2 pi more, another full circle. So if I add 2 onto 1 1/5, I get 3 1/5 pi in a positive direction. And if I take 3 1/5 and add it with 4/5, that gives me 4 pi. That's 2 full circles. So again, I know that I'm correct on that. All right, last one like this. Negative pi over 10. Well, that's 1/10 of the way to pi. Pi is here, so this is 0. If I go in a negative direction, 1/10 of the way, it's really itty bitty. I probably made it bigger than it needs to be. But this is my negative 1/10 pi, negative pi over 10, same thing. So let's see if I go in a positive direction to get there. Here I am, start here. Here's 1 pi, and I'm going all the way around to here and stopping. I'm not quite making it to the full circle of 2 pi. I have this 1/10 I couldn't go. So I went 1 9/10 pi. Because a full circle would have been 2 pi, which I didn't get there. So I got 1 9/10. That's my positive direction. Negative direction, here it is, 1/10. But I can't stop there. It's the same as the original. I've got to keep going around again. Here's 2 pi and 1/10 more. So this guy would be 2 1/10 pi in a negative direction. Check yourself out. 9/10 and 1/10 is 1. 2 more is 3, 1 more is 4. 4 pi, that's a multiple of a circle, so you know that you've got that one right. All right, coterminals, they're the hardest one. There is one question on the quiz that asks you for a positive angle and one that asks you for the negative. So I would give you something like this for two different questions. I'd say, what is a positive coterminal angle for 280 degrees? And then the next question says, what is a negative coterminal angle for 280 degrees? All right, so there's one question, but it's kind of one angle measurement, but two questions that come from it. All right, next one is state the quadrants, draw the angle. So 300 degrees, you have those blue sheets. Remember, you can use the blue sheets, and I expect that this is open notebook quiz, open, you can use your review sheets, you can use the blue circles that we made. All of those things come into play. All right, 300 degrees. Here I am at 90, 180, 270, 300 has to be over here. So state the quadrant where that happens, and you would say that's quadrant 4. Remember how the quadrants go? Again, this is on your blue circles, blue sheets. This is the first quadrant, this is the second quadrant, this is the third quadrant, and this is the fourth quadrant. That one landed in the fourth. If I am negative 660, well, think about that if I take a circle away from that. So if I take, remember the negative is just telling me it's going down. So if I take 660, I'll do it over here, and I take away a full circle from that, it's going to tell me how many times I'm going around. So this one would, if I subtract them, I get 300. So in other words, I'm going a full circle plus 300 more. So I start here, my same starting place, I'm going down, I'm going a full circle, and 300 more. This would be 90, 180, 270, 300's over here. So I would land in the first quadrant. And that's my negative 660. All right, 2 more, and then we're going to be done for today's lesson. Let's see, we got these guys here at the top of the page. 5 pi over 3, again, the question is what quadrant do they land in? Draw the angle. So if I am 5 pi over 3, I am 1 2/3 pi. So I start, it's positive, start in positive direction, here's starting. This is pi, 1 pi. I need to go 2/3 more, so I have to think, is 2/3 bigger than a half or smaller than a half? And hopefully you said bigger, because this is a half and I need to go a little bit more. So I'm going to end up in the fourth quadrant, 1 2/3. This one is 7 pi over 4, again in a negative direction, but that would be like negative 1 3/4 pi. So I'm going 1 3/4 of the way. Start in a negative direction. Here's a pi. There's 1. I'm going 3/4 more. 3/4 is more than a half. So I'm going to end up over here in the first quadrant. And that is my angle for negative 7 pi over 4. All right, so if you go to the review sheet that you have, you are going to be working on, for this set of problems, you're working on, this is what the review sheet looks like. There's some in the middle that you can skip because we don't have calculators. I don't know if you have calculators at home that are going to do these conversions, so we just took them off. But you're going to be working on the problems from 1 through 24 that go with the examples that I just did. And then tomorrow I'll upload another video that gives you some examples to be able to complete the rest of the worksheet. So email me if you've got any concerns, and I will talk to you soon. Stay well. Bye.